National Broadcasting Company presents the National Football League. Today from Texas Stadium, it's the Seattle Seahawks versus the Dallas Cowboys. This special Thanksgiving Day game is brought to you by Bud Light. Everything else is just a light. By Mercedes-Benz, engineered like no other car in the world. And by Sears. Come celebrate Sears' new century. See all the ways we've changed and all the ways we haven't.
A beautiful Thanksgiving in Texas, sunny and 50 degrees, and a sellout crowd, 64,000 to see the Dallas Cowboys and Seattle Seahawks in the annual Thanksgiving feast here in Texas. And it's been all of that, Merlin Olsen. 6 straight times Dallas has won this game, and 9 of the last 10. And 10, that's 10 years for us. Happy
It's an anniversary for us, Dick. I think if we'd have been a couple of turkeys, we wouldn't have survived this long.
Think we are.
And we wouldn't have an opportunity to share this day with so many nice people all across this country.
Indeed. Happy Thanksgiving, and we're pleased to share our broadcast time today with the all-pro quarterback from the Miami Dolphins, Bob Griese. You know, it's dreaming time for the Dallas Cowboys, and they have their dream backfield set to start today.
Well, any quarterback would have to be dreaming to have Dorsett and Walker in the same backfield. The move was made to get more big plays into the offense and try to take some of the pressure off of Steve Pelleur. You know, Merlin and I have played in several Thanksgiving Day games, and it seems like it's always a short week. The players are always sore and banged up. The best team doesn't always win. I think the key to today's game is attitude. The team that plays the best mentally will usually win the game.
Sometimes the best attitude goes with a team that plays at home. Seattle has struggled of late.
Well, Seattle, you talk about dreams. Theirs is a season, at least a late season, of fractured dreams and shattered dreams. Their best start ever. They started off hot. Key injuries, Kenny Easley, Blair Bush, Jeff Bryant, helped them into a tailspin. They lost 4 in a row, and although they bailed themselves out with a win against Philadelphia last week, wasn't pretty. They just put it in the W column and walked away.
Cowboys are favored by more than a touchdown. What does Seattle do?
Well, I sat in many locker rooms looking at Chuck Knox when we were underdogs. I know what he's telling Seattle. He's saying, we've just got to find a way to win. Last week, they did that with special teams against the Philadelphia Eagles. They lined up in a punt situation, in on John Telchik, carried Justin, 26, right off the punter's foot. And then it's scooped up by Eric Lane and Terry Taylor and carried in tandem across the goal line.
Yeah, like a couple of marathon runners completing their 26-plus mile run hand in hand. And now we're set to go. The Seahawks in blue. The Cowboys will receive to open this Thanksgiving special. Each team still with hopes for a wild card playoff spot. Dallas obviously in better position at 7-5. Norm Johnson skids it down. Robert Levette returns to the 22-yard line. Seahawks always tough on kick coverage. Here comes Steve Pelleur, the young quarterback from the University of Washington, for the injured Danny White. Tuanay, Titans Rafferty, Kerr, and Cooper, the offensive line. And that Tony Hill, second to Drew Pearson, and catches on one wide out. Sherrard, the rookie, gets his first start with Doug Cosby, the tight end. And the Heisman dream backfield of Walker and Dorsett behind Pelleur. First time they've started together, they've been in the same backfield, but usually one used as a wing or a motion man. And it's Dorsett. Caught at the line of scrimmage, and he's dropped for a loss. Greg Gaines, number 56, the linebacker, spearheaded the charge for the Hawks, and here they are, the starting defensive unit. Edwards for the injured Jeff Bryant. Kinlaw, the veteran former Raider, on the nose. Jacob Green has 11 sacks to lead the Seattle team. Gaines, Butler, Young, and Schultz, the linebackers. The veteran Dave Brown at one corner. Tony Taylor, he's nicked at the other. Robinson and Moyer. Moyer for the irreplaceable Kenny Easley at safety. Pelleur screens it to Dorsett. And Dorsett is out to the 35 with a first down. Paul Moyer made the tackle. And let's check that defense. Kerry Justin, 26, does start for Terry Taylor at the left corner.
Dick, and talking to Tom Catlett, Chapman, the defensive coordinator for Seattle, just before the game. He said the one thing that scares me most about this Dallas team, they're the best screening team I have ever seen, with an explosive back like Dorsett on one side, and they can put a double screen in there and put Walker out on the other side.
Here's Walker, his first carry, and he's out to the 38, a gain of 3. Hershel Walker playing on a bum knee and ankle. In the last 3 games, well, you can see, has rushed for only 25 yards. He often gets that many just going from the bedroom out to have breakfast, and he's due to break some big ones. He says he's healthier than he's been in a month. Detroit beat Green Bay earlier 40-37 in a scoring-fest at Pontiac, and we welcome those of you who enjoyed that game to the second half of our Thanksgiving doubleheader, a national doubleheader. Doug Cosby in motion. On 2nd and 7, Dorsett struggling to a first down, it would appear, as he drives out to the 45-yard line. Reggie Kinlaw made the tackle. Chuck Knox told us yesterday, Merlin Olsen, that he was not happy with the way his team has been tackling of late, and they don't seem to be hitting all that well early today.
Well, both coaches talked very specifically about their defenses missing a lot of tackles last week. You watch the action inside, you'll see that there are a couple of chances early to get an arm on Dorsett, but you've got to wrap Dorsett up. And you in particular have to wrap Walker up. They're not easy to tackle.
First down, Dallas. Screen to Walker. And he's cut down on a good open field tackle by Bruce Schultz, who played his football down at Austin, University of Texas. Chuck Knox, 33 years he has coached the game of football. This is his 3rd NFL team, and taken all 3 to the playoffs, and he can coach and officiate at the same time.
Well, I tell you, one thing you know about Knox, and it's a real transition. You start with Landry, who very seldom will show you his emotions. Knox always lets you know exactly where he is.
At the 50, it'll be 3rd down and 5.
Now, I mentioned the screen pass. We've seen 3 here in this first series of plays. 2 to Hershel Walker and 1 to Dorsett. The Seahawks did a pretty good job of shutting that one down, and a chance now perhaps to get some pressure on Pelleur.
Tom Landry, an institution, 27th year. He has, many of his players are not 27 years old. He's been coaching the Cowboys for 27. Pelleur out of the shotgun. Cosby, first down at the 44 of Seattle. Doug Cosby, he's been the forgotten man in the Cowboy offense. Pro Bowler the last 3 years.
You have to know that Tom Landry did a lot of agonizing during this short week. And I'm sure one of the things that's going through his head is, how can I use the talents of my players more effectively? Cosby is one of those talents that he needs to put in there.
We understand that that was not a final in Detroit. We apologize for that. Green Bay leading Detroit by 4, and they're still playing in a marathon game in the 4th quarter. 2nd down play offers nothing on first down. 2nd and 10 as Schultz again in on the tackle for Seattle. Hershel Walker goes out of the lineup, and Timmy Newsome in for Dallas. Sherrard, the speedster, rookie from UCLA, #1 pick, is wide to the left. He was featured, of course, Bill McAtee on that NFL '86 program. Play action by Pelleur. Throws to Newsome. Good tackle by 41 Eugene Robinson, free agent out of Colgate, where he was a computer science major. A heady player is Robinson. Gain of 1 at best, Merlin. 3rd and 9.
Dick, we had a chance to watch Seattle earlier in the year on several occasions, and at that time they were ranked among the top teams defensively in the league. Right now they've slipped to 25th defensively in total ranking in the league.
Cowboys had little luck doing anything against the Redskins last Sunday. Pelleur is 5 for 5 on this opening drive, and he needs 9 for a first down. And he gets it on the scramble. Patrick Hunter, 23, finally downed him at the 34-yard line. Well, he may not have gotten it. They, of course, spot the ball where the ball is when he slides, not where he first touches the ground, and he may not have gotten it.
Out of the shotgun, or the spread as they call it here in Dallas, Pelleur back does not waste any time, sees an opening. He's a good runner, and he's quickly upfield, but he is bruised with a hip and an ankle problem. Landry took him out of the game to try and save his health a little bit last week, but he's still ailing late into this week.
And it is not the first down. 4th and inches. Danny White, the starting quarterback at the beginning of the year, with his fractured right wrist, sending in the signals to Pelleur. They'll not go for the field goal.
There's not much to pick up by the punt here, unless you really get a good one angled out of bounds. Landry with an early gamble. Let's see how it works out.
It would be about a 52-yard field goal, so they're going to go for more than 3. Newsom, first down. Timmy Newsom, who has not gotten his number called much of late, gets a critical 4th down play and a first down at the 31. That's 4 straight first downs for the Cowboys after taking the opening kickoff. And now the final from Detroit, and quite a game. 44-40 the Packers.
One of those defensive struggles, Dick.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens here at Irving. Dorsett looking for some blocking help. There is none. He's dropped for a loss at the 31-yard line. Randy Edwards.
Dick, sometimes there is no easy way to make the play. Dave Brown, number 22, is not a very big cornerback. He came up on that play, saw there was nowhere to go, and just threw his body into Glenn Titensor, the lead guard, blocked him down, knocked him down. Watch the end of this play. You see that play right there as Brown just throws himself in front of Walker, and there's nowhere for Dorsett to go. An outstanding play in there as Brown able to take down 2 people.
Finished the job. Jim Cooper, a sprained knee, and Phil Posderick has replaced him at tackle. There's that screen again, but it's too low, and all Walker can do is roll forward for about a yard to the 26-yard line, where it'll be 3rd down. Fred Young and Gregory Johnson there for Seattle. Fred Young, a Dallas native. He said, I asked him if he were a Cowboy fan growing up. He said, rabid. He said, and my favorite man wasn't Roger Staubach. Rayfield Wright was the man that I like most. In fact, he was a neighbor.
He's the most talented of those linebackers physically. They'd love it a little more in Seattle if he'd spend more time in the books, but a great natural athlete.
3rd and 5. On a blitz, they can't get to Pelleur. 20. And down to the 16, but a flag is down, and we may have holding. No, it's Seattle. A personal foul. They hit Pelleur in the face mask.
You can't hit a quarterback to the head, and it looked like one of the Seahawks broke free and put a hand to the head on that play.
Personal foul, number 72 defense, unnecessary roughness, going to the quarterback's head. Enforced from the end of the run.
You'll see Pelleur, and Nash will come from his left, from our right, and there's the shot. Just a banging of the head backwards. Pelleur doing a good job of getting out of there to pick up some yardage. Of course, that penalty designed to protect the player, and you're not allowed to hit any player to the head. And Knox on the sideline absolutely livid, but I think if he had seen what we just saw, he would agree with the call.
They marked the penalty inside the 10-yard line. 1st and goal at the 8.5. Pelleur, with that scramble, is now over 200 yards rushing the football. The number 3 runner for Dallas. And the Cowboys dominating this first quarter with this long drive. that started back just at their own 22. Dorsett, big hole, touchdown.
The Dallas Cowboys were eager to get on the field after embarrassing themselves against the Redskins last week. The best thing for them was to play, if they could, on Monday. They wanted to get out there as fast as they could. And taking the first ball, taking the first drive all the way down will help to erase some of that pain that they've experienced during this week.
Using only a couple of short passes, basically on the ground. Now Septien for the point after. 7-0 Dallas. A 78-yard drive in 15 plays that consumed over 9 minutes. So the Cowboys off to a fast start. Tony Dorsett's 8-yard run giving Dallas a 7-0 lead, and with the run, Dorsett moved into the number 2 spot in all-time NFL history total yards. Walter Payton by himself in his own league. Then Dorsett with the 8 yards, that pushing him past Franco Harris, the former runner-up. Bobby Joe Edmonds and Randall Morris are deep for Seattle as Septien kicks toward Morris at the 6. He has a gap at the 20, and out to the 35-yard line goes Randall Morris, Darrell Clack, and Bill Bates. Bates got him first. Dave Kreig brings his offense on the field.
And Dick, we talked about it in the opening. Here's Hershel Walker. Watch the block he throws on Fred Young as Dorsett follows his backfield mate right through the hole on the draw. Beautiful blocking in the offensive line. Not only do they run and catch well, but they also block for each other.
From the 34, Seattle's first chance on offense, and it's Curt Warner. No, John L. Williams gets the call out to the 40-yard line, a pickup of 6. Williams, the number 1 pick, rookie from the University of Florida. There's the offensive line for Seattle. Wilson, Millard, Grant for the injured Blair Bush, Bailey and Mattis. Largent trying to continue his all-time string with Tice the tight end and Turner. Warner and Williams behind quarterback Dave Kreig. Plowing close to a first down at the 44. Warner, the number 1 rusher in the AFC, starting today with 958 yards on the ground, number 5 in the NFL. Defensively, Dallas, those are all number 1 picks on the front wall. Jones, Dutton, White, and Jeffcoat. Hegman and Rohr, the outside backers, with a hitting machine. Lockhart, the middle man. Walls and Fellows at the corners. Downs and Bates at safety. Downs playing hurt. The measurement, first down, Seattle.
Dick, if you give Chuck Knox his way, he'd love to keep the game on the ground all afternoon. With Dallas coming out and a strong emphasis on the running game, Knox is going to come back the same way. He started the game that way, and he's got 2 tight ends in there. Now takes 1 out and goes to 2 wide receivers.
Breaks out of a tackle, Randy White, and White finally able to drag him down at the 50-yard line as Williams plows for 6 more on first down. Yes, ground chuck is his favorite order.
Well, he would love to do that. In talking to him, he said, I don't think we're strong enough right now. We're not playing solid defense. We have a good running game, but he said we're going to have to test Dallas deep today. We're going to have to try and beat them with some big passes. And of course, right now the running game is going. He'll stick with it, but don't be surprised to see him take that long shot here in the early going.
Too tall Jones. Now 35 years of age from Tennessee State made the tackle, and Warner
is still on the ground. Leveled on that last play, and
now 35 years of age from Tennessee State made the tackle, and Warner
is still on the ground. Leveled on that last play, and already with 3 of their most important starters on injured reserve, The last thing in the world you need is to lose your main man offensively, and that is, of course, Curt Warner.
So a timeout. Made a couple of third downs and a fourth down conversion on its touchdown drive. Now it's third and long for Kreig, his first pass. And he's going long for Franklin. Byron Franklin, first down at the 24-yard line. A 24-yard pass from Kreig.
That's a confidence builder for Kreig as he puts 4 wide receivers downfield and out of the shotgun catches Franklin. You see him starting to the inside, coming back now, breaking quickly upfield, and now he'll take a little dip to the inside and then fall to the outside. That ball waiting there for him. Johnny Holloway, number 23, trying to follow all those maneuvers. Couldn't keep up with Franklin. Big first down.
Looking for Turner, and Darrell Turner has a first down at the 13-yard line. Ron Fellows, the defender.
Well, they've gotten one into Franklin. They come right back to number 81, Darrell Turner, who's been in and out of Chuck Knox's doghouse during this season. You see Kreig, who has him all the way, just waits for the break and then puts a quick shot in there to him. He got Fellows to turn around looking toward that goal line and then got him back into the first down area.
2 minutes and 10 seconds left. First quarter. Seattle trying to tie it up. John L. Williams showing his leg strength as he just carries number 50 Jeff Rohr on his back for a couple of extra yards. And we'll see where they spot it at the 10-yard line.
I talked to Dave Kreig before the game about this roller coaster emotional season for him after that big loss to the Denver Broncos. A chance for Seattle to get itself with a tie of the AFC West. He said he was pulled from the lineup for a couple of weeks. Knox has him back in there now, and he's off to a good start here today.
Larger in motion. 135 consecutive games with a catch. Underneath, however, to the 6-yard line short of a first down. It's Franklin again. Byron Franklin, former Buffalo number 2 draft pick and acquired from the Bills last year for tight end Pete Metzelaars.
One thing we know about Dave Kreig, Dick, and we've seen him in a lot of games where he's been either very, very good or very, very bad. He's a streak thrower. And he's off to a hot streak right now. That's not good news for the Dallas Cowboys.
Kreig 3 for 3 on this drive and 41 yards. Third down and 4. Draw. And Kreig has a touchdown. The few Seahawk fans have a chance to cheer here at Texas Stadium as Kreig uses the quarterback draw, and it works beautifully.
Well, turnabout is fair play. It was a draw play at the other end. Dorsett on the draw, taking it in. No question about this at all. Just one quick step to set it up and then right up field. Kreig doing a good job of running. Look at him dive for that end zone. It's the way you want to do it. You take one in to match theirs.
Norm Johnson to try the point after. And both teams score on their first possession, and it consumes almost the entire first quarter. We have 41 seconds remaining, and Dave Kreig's draw touchdown has tied Dallas 7-7. Possession to tie it, and here's Norm Johnson to kick it off. Darryl Clack, the rookie from Arizona State, having trouble. Seattle had a great shot at it, but it got away. I believe Dallas recovered. No official signal yet by Bob McElway. Yes, it belongs to the Cowboys. 4 or 5 blue jerseys were right there.
Deja vu for the Cowboys. That's the way they started last week's game against the Washington Redskins with a Clack fumble. It ended up, of course, later on in a touchdown for the Redskins, but Clack just taking his eye off that ball, and they are so lucky to get it. You just got to cover that ball at that point right through the legs of Greg Johnson, number 27. A couple of other Seahawks had a chance. It was finally Merriman had a chance, Moyer had a chance, but the Cowboys get it back.
First down at their own 10-yard line. That would have been a big break for the Seahawks. 30 seconds left, first quarter. Walker to the 14-yard line, and that's not the kind of power running we saw from Hershel Walker earlier in the year. Shows that he isn't totally 100% healthy.
He took a helmet to his ankle earlier in this season. He said it wasn't really a sprain. He just caught that helmet full into the ankle. It kind of drove his foot along the ground. Been heavily bruised. He has tried to go. He's a young man who wants to play. In fact, you ask him, are you healthy? I'm ready. I'm 100%. But you can see there, he's not really 100%.
A very rapidly played first quarter here at Texas Stadium. The Cowboys have days when you watch this game after a Rams practice, then you went home and you had your fill.
You go home and have Thanksgiving dinner, and coaches always worry about that a little bit. In fact, one year George Allen was our coach. We weighed in on Thursday, threw a surprise weigh-in on Friday. We had some guys who gained 12, 10, 14 pounds.
Come on, that much in one day?
Absolutely true in one day.
Pelleur to Walker, and Walker tripped up at the 22-yard line. The official first half statistics as Walker has the Cowboys in first down position again.
You see the rushing yardage very healthy for both sides, and passing yardage almost equal. Certainly when you can take the ball and take it all the way down the field and score, you can't complain much on the offensive side, Dick, and both teams have done it.
And now the Cowboys, after flirting with trouble on Clack's kickoff fumble, have a first down across their 20. Pelleur. Secondary receiver. Has his first catch of the day and 16 yards. Gerard is from Chico, California. He's had his mother watching up there, a former 1964 U.S. Olympian.
One of the things that has to help Steve Pelleur today is that with the injuries to this Seahawk defense, they're not able to put the pressure on the quarterback. In fact, they've had troubles all year pressuring the quarterback, even though they got 9 sacks last week. And Pelleur has been sacked 16 times the past 2 weeks. They haven't gotten closer today.
Walker somewhat gingerly and then driving out to the 43-yard line. Keith Butler and company in on the tackle. 79 is Jacob Breen from Texas A&M, the defensive left end, who is the top sack master of the Seahawks again this year with 11, among the league leaders.
It's strange that so many of those sacks have come in 2 games. They got 7 against the Giants and 9 last week against Philadelphia. In fact, they have been called bag ladies or sad sacks at times during the season, Dick. Not very complimentary. I wouldn't call them that.
Walker close to a first down. Young turned the play in and got a little piece of Walker.
Because of the defensive style of this Seahawk team, it's a pure zone team on first and second downs, on running downs. Pelleur should have a little more time and should be a little bit more comfortable back there. He has had real pressure when you've been able to get somebody up in his face and make him make a decision very quickly. When you've got to go back there with a second to decide whether you're going to throw it, unload it, or run, that's awfully tough pressure for a young quarterback. You can't get much better than that, though. 8 for 8 so far in this game.
3rd and 1. A 7-all tie, early second quarter here in Texas Stadium. Dorsett, he didn't make it. Stacked up well as the Seahawks converge to the ball. We understand we had a long-distance call from Los Angeles, California, from one Jim Brown, who said, "Remember me?"
Don't forget me in there.
Don't push me out of there. I'm still number 2, and Dorsett has a 800 yards or so before he passes the great former Cleveland Brown, Hall of Famer.
I can tell you, I remember those guys having a chance to play against both Brown and, of course, against Peyton as well. Chance to take a look at them up close and personal.
He did not make it, so 4th down, Dallas. And Tom Landry is not in the mood to gamble in his own territory. For Seattle, perhaps best in the last 4 or 5 years in the entire NFL at blocking kicks. They have 4 this year. That's 1 shy of the NFL record for a season.
And all 4 have ended up in touchdowns for them.
including one last week, as you saw against Philadelphia. Mike Saxon averaging just under 41 a kick. Bobby Joe Edmonds turned 175 yards for a score against Philadelphia in their win last Sunday. Well, they give that kicker a lot to think about, both in having one blocked and return for a score. This is the return. Fair catch, Edmonds. Oh, lets it bounce, and it hits a Cowboy at the 20, Steve Diassi. And Seattle will take over at the 22-yard line. A timeout, 11 minutes, 42 seconds remaining in this. Dick Henberg with Merlin Olsen and Bob Greasy. Welcome to our Thanksgiving special, the Cowboys and the Seahawks. It's tied at 7-all, 11:42 left, second quarter. Seattle, after a 30-yard punt by Saxon, begins at its 22. And it's Curt Warner, shaken on the last possession, but apparently okay, and he's out of bounds at the 25-yard line. 40 points and lose. Well, that was the story elsewhere. Let's go to him. Second down and 7, and it's Curt Warner. Thank you, Bob. Second down and 7, and it's Curt Warner slashing out to the 30-yard line. Everson Walls and Mike Hegman with a stop for Dallas. Warner 5th in the NFL with those numbers, behind Eric Dickerson, Joe Morris, Walter Payton, and George Rogers. The top four have surpassed the 1,000-yard mark, and Warner working at it against the Cowboys today. Needed 42 going in. Bill Bates, the hitman in that deep secondary for the Cowboys. We'll keep our eye on him. 3rd and 3. Largent with a catch and a first down. No, it isn't Largent. It's Paul Scansey, a look-alike with an 82. Scansey from the University of Washington. Not as big as some of the receivers, not as fast. Along the Largent line, underneath to have the first down.
Well, he's cloned himself in the Largent fashion, learned from Steve, and has tried to pick up some of that pettiness and some of the great moves that Largent puts on you. And, of course, it showed up right there.
Here's Largent. Let's watch him. He's looking for a catch to extend his NFL record to 136 consecutive games with a reception. 7-all the score. Largent in motion. Play action. And incomplete as Randy White makes the play.
It figures that Randy White would be having a day today because he's got to be a little bit angry. During the week, the papers here reporting that Abe Gibron, who does the on-site scouting for the Seahawks, was in Washington last week, and one of the reporters here quoting him would say, "Where's Randy White? Where is Randy White? We haven't seen him all day. And where's John Dutton?" And of course, having that nailed into the papers in a week that has been so embarrassing for the Cowboys has to put you into a bit of a flurry and a bit of a rage. I don't think I'd want to be that reporter having both Randy White and Abe Gibron after me.
Curt Warner out to the 49-yard line. Native of Pinefield, West Virginia, a town of around 1,000. And with help from a friendly teacher, found his way to Joe Paterno's camp at Penn State.
Talking to Warner about this artificial turf, he said, against a team like the Cowboys, who move so well laterally, and this defense, the defense that Landry has had here for so many years, is awfully tough to run against because it's a flowing defense. He said those holes don't stay open long. You've got to hit them quickly.
3rd and 2 at midfield. Shovel pass, and Warner breaks a tackle, and I believe with a second effort gets the first down. Vince Albritton, who's playing for Michael Downs at a safety spot, he can play both linebacker and safety, made the hit, but Warner able to fight free for the first down.
This is almost the reverse of the option play to the outside. Kreig trying to lead that defensive end. You see him right there, Too Tall Jones outside, and then flip it back inside. Able to pick up that first down, but only because Warner was able to get some good second effort out of it.
One of the advantages that forward flip is that if you drop it, it's not a fumble, it's an incomplete pass. Kreig going long, and Largent is wide open. And Largent's first catch is a big one at the 11, and that would have been a sure touchdown had Kreig not underthrown it. 136 in a row for Largent.
Watch Everson Walls. You talk about magic feet. Largent with just a little move there and left Everson Walls cold. And Largent does that so well. He will put you to sleep. He made a believer out of Walls. Watch the little move that he puts on there. Well, you see him here. He's already accelerated. And had that ball been thrown a little further, that's a touchdown.
Boy, he really sold Walls on an inside move. 37 yards and a first down as Seattle threatens to take the lead. Warner behind Williams' block, but right there was Eugene Lockhart, number 56.
Dick, that's an illustration of something that's happening to Dallas the last couple of weeks that they had not allowed earlier in the year. The big plays against the pass defense. Washington last week, 3 huge plays. One of them a touchdown to Didier, a couple of shots, one to Monk and one to Clark. And right now the Seahawks expanding on that same theorem, getting the ball deep to Largent here to get a scoring opportunity.
9th play of the drive coming up. Warner moves up as they anticipated a safety blitz. Kreig guns it, touchdown Largent. Oh my, acrobatic Steve Largent.
It looked like Michael Downs wanted to sucker Kreig into an audible. And then at the last second tried to change the defense. The ball snapped at that point, and I don't think the other defensive backs knew exactly what was happening. Walls, it looked like, just left his man Largent. Largent all alone, and there's the pass for the touchdown as Largent finds himself in the end zone.
The 84th career touchdown for Steve Largent out of Tulsa University, Oklahoma City. Norm Johnson adds the extra point. Let's take another look from another angle at the magic of Kreig and Largent. 7 minutes and 4 seconds left in the first half. Well, you can go ahead and reserve a spot in Canton, Ohio at the Pro Football Hall of Fame for that man, Steve Largent. He just keeps moving up into great names on the all-time receiving list, and we'll give you an example after the kickoff as Norm Johnson roots one deep. Clack had trouble the last one. 10. Oh, as he hammered at the 15-yard line. Tackle made by Michael Jackson, number 55. With that last touchdown catch, Largent moves ever closer to the number 3 spot all-time. The immortal Don Hudson, number 1. Don Maynard, why isn't he in Canton, Ohio in the Hall of Fame? Lance Allworth and Paul Warfield just 1 ahead of Steve Largent. He'd win on What's My Line. You meet him in the lobby, you'd never guess that he is an all-time great pass catcher in the NFL. 14-7. Seattle, just under 7 minutes left in the half, and here comes another future Hall of Famer, Tony Dorsett. Bob Greasy.
Well, Merlin, you're right. There was some confusion in the backfield. Here's Downs. He was going to safety blitz. The back saw it, moved up to take him, and that leaves Walls out here on an island by himself as Kreig checks to the slant and hits the future Hall of Famer with a touchdown, as you see Walls just trying to hang on.
And you can see Downs waving his arms, knowing that they were in trouble. And 7 for Pelleur. Dorsett. Well, you think you want to be a defensive linebacker. That Schultz looked like he was in one of those revolving doors. They just kept spinning him as he tried to block the path of Dorsett.
Call that an egg beater. Boy, I tell you, they're all going out there. Dick, just to finish the thoughts on Largent. Largent said he's got so many family here. 47 tickets he bought for his family. And in the locker room just before the game, he's opening up his bag, and he said, can you tell that my wife packed this bag? He opened it up. I looked in there, he had some diapers in there on top of his bag. That shows you the other side of the man, too.
Well, he braids his the older daughter's hair before she goes to school. He's a complete man. 3rd down and 5. Newsome hit at the 29-yard line by Fred Young, and that will be short of a first down.
Now, we've talked about the athletic ability of Fred Young. Really earned his reputation as a special teamer, but watch him here reading quickly on Newsome. Newsome trying to get outside, and Young right there with him, but they still have good yardage on the play. Fourth down, was not able to get enough for the first down. That turns out to be a very big play by Fred Young.
Mike Saxon to kick to Bobby Joe Edmonds. Edmonds back at the 30. Seattle does not show block. Beautiful spiral. Edmonds has to come up to get it on the run at the 39, 50. And he's to the Dallas 46-yard line. The NFL's #1 punt returner, Bobby Joe Edmonds, averaging over 14 a return, gets 15 on that one. It's Happy Thanksgiving from the Lone Star State with 4:31. Have the ball just inside the Dallas 47. For a bundle to Darrell Turner, and Everson Walls breaks it up. Walls, who 3 times the NFL leader in interceptions. No other player in the history of the game can make that claim, but burned earlier by Steve Largent.
And that's the kind of deep shot that we anticipated Seattle would be taking in this game. It paid off to Largent, almost paid off on that particular play.
Halftime, Jim McMahon, the wounded warrior with the Chicago Bears, will be part of NFL '86. Ahmad Rashad reflects on the man still regarded as the all-time Cowboy, Roger Staubach.
I remember him.
Oh,
Do I ever?
With fear. Second and 10, Warner. Twisting away from John Dutton. Bill Bates and Eugene Lockhart finally made the tackle. Reminder, we'll be selecting the Budweiser Most Valuable Player in today's game later in the second half.
As we talked to Tom Landry about the different personnel on this Seattle team, his comment about Warner was interesting. He said, makes you miss. And you saw it right there. That great lateral movement, good body control as Warner twisted away for what would have been a no-gainer to pick up good yardage.
Out of the shotgun. Third down, a long 4. Blitz. He got away from Downs, and that's Paul Scansey all the way to the 20. 21 yards, but give credit to Dave Kreig. Michael Downs on a safety blitz. Couldn't get him.
Well, Kreig buys this one, Dick, because Scansey's going to come down and break to the outside, and then he has enough time to circle back inside. Double blitz on the outside, and Kreig beats it. As you see, Scansey, his route was out, sees it, comes back to the inside. A good block right there.
Good adjustment to a quarterback in trouble by the young receiver.
Looked like Howard Twilley and you, Bob. John L. Williams, the fullback, driving for about 5 on first down.
Perhaps as much as anything, the key to Dave Kreig's problems on the season would lie in confidence, and in his sometimes powerful confidence, and other days the inability to really feel the confidence in that throwing arm of his. Well, he has it today, and he had an interesting comment, Dick. I asked him about the season. He said, one of the things I appreciate most is Bob Greasy coming down to talk to me to say, hey, I've been benched before too.
Second down and 5 at the 15. Warner hit in the backfield and dropped for a loss by too tall and too long Jones.
Using those long arms, just like a scythe or a sickle, you'll feel that you're there with him. Warner coming in behind the block, but look how quickly Jones is able to stunt to the inside and just whip those legs out from underneath that running back.
And that takes us to the 2-minute timeout here in the first half. Seattle threatens Steve Pelleur. Look at those numbers, 8 for 10 for Kreig.
Working against perfect. Kreig is working against the #1 pass defense in the NFL.
Only 46% on the year. He's going for a touchdown to Franklin. 10 for 10. Seattle's had the ball 3 times, have generated 3 long touchdown marches, and lead 20-7.
Manny Hendricks in there in the nickel package, and Hendricks just outrun to the corner. You'll have a a chance to see it here. Franklin just flat out beat him, and that was a perfect strike by Dave Kreig.
Franklin's second touchdown of the year, his 29th catch, and here's the try for point by Norm Johnson. 1 minute 56 seconds left in the half. 21-7.
You look for the man with single coverage. Kreig finds him right here, and Manny Hendricks unable to take him. You watch the double coverage on both guys underneath.
That'll be at halftime, so stay with us. Seattle surprisingly leads 21-7. Clack at the goal line. And he's out of bounds at the 25, and a flag is down. Could be that Seattle was offside. Reminder, NFL 86 halftime coming up. Offside the other way.
Well, you've got to have 5 men within a certain range of that kicker, and if they sneak out of that zone too quickly, the foul will go, or the penalty will go against Dallas.
Yeah, Chuck Knox has always felt his kickoff team can pinch the opposition in at the 15, so he's going to take
on the receiving team.
He's going to take the penalty.
For the 5-yard penalty.
Let's go back to Steve Largent. Although he didn't catch the last pass, he certainly was instrumental in the touchdown.
Franklin is the bottom receiver here, Dick. Now let's watch as we go downfield. If we can stop it right here, Largent is here. He gets double coverage. The other double coverage is inside. Now the man that catches it right here is Franklin. David Kreig's had a tough year, but he certainly is having a good game here today.
And Everson Walls really had a choice, didn't he, as to which man to clamp onto at the last minute. I don't blame him for looking at Largent, and that's where he went. And Kreig looked the other way and got the TD.
And Dave Kreig is a perfect 10 for 10. Has rushed for 1 touchdown, checked at 10 for 11, and actually he's had 2 that he's missed. That's
10 for 12. There you go.
10 for 12, 2 touchdowns.
You know he's been hot. Not quite that hot, Dick.
That's right. Pelleur is the one that's been perfect. Yeah, Levette won't run this one out, so Seattle gains the 5 yards from the 25 back to the 20. Clack had returned the first one out to the 25.
What confidence in your kicking team. Most coaches would be happy at the 25, 26-yard line. Seattle says, heck no, we'll go get him again. We'll keep him inside the 20. I don't blame them for wanting to just take that and bring it out to the 20.
Dallas with plenty of time and all of its timeouts remaining, trailing 21-7.
And of course, this is a time you'd love to have your veteran quarterback Danny White on the field. Pelleur showing some real flashes of brilliance in this game, but experience will limit him against that nickel package.
Oh, that was almost intercepted by a lineman as Hershel Walker had to fight Randy Edwards for the ball.
Randy Edwards is playing with a neck injury. You see that wrap around his neck? Somebody grabbed his mask a couple of weeks ago and jerked his head, sprained his neck. He had to leave last week's game because of that, but he's in there today and did a fine job on that play.
2nd and 14, and Pelleur is going to go down at the 5. Jacob Green has his 12th sack of the year. And now Seattle's going to call time, feeling that they've got Dallas in the hole, and they might have a chance to pick up an extra field goal or better before halftime.
Jacob Green from that left end position flying to the outside. That's Posderick. Cooper out with a knee problem, and Posderick unable to keep a hold of him, and hold is not a good word when you talk to Posderick.
That's the play. As you see, Seattle registered 9 sacks last week against the Eagles, a Seattle record. The way Pelleur went down is the concern of every coach in the National Football League. The double penalty the quarterback gets, not only being tackled, but the way he slams to the hard artificial carpet. Yeah, Jim McMahon will be the guest of NFL 86 at halftime. And Ahmad Rashad's memories of Roger Staubach, the all-time Cowboy great and Heisman winner at the Naval Academy, and still greatness surrounds the name Staubach when you talk to anybody in this part of the football country. Most sacks allowed. The Eagles have set an NFL record. Dallas now in second place.
Already. That is going to be a real record before it's finished, I think.
1 minute, 22 seconds left in the half. Dorsett. 10, 15, 18-yard line. And Seattle will call time with 1:12 showing. They have a timeout left and will get the ball in pretty good field position to add to a 21-7 lead. Well, it's a big sports weekend on NBC. Of course, more football for you on Sunday, but Saturday and Sunday for you golfers, one of the highlights of the year, the Skins game. 3:30 Eastern time Saturday, and then Sunday. Check your local listings. The competitors: Fuzzy Zoeller, Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, and Lee Trevino. It's literally a tournament in every hole they play, and lots of money adds up when someone can't win a hole. I know you've enjoyed it in the past, and we got Zoeller, Nicklaus, Palmer, and Trevino salivating right now as they go after a big bag of money out there in California. Tom Landry, they said, Too Tall Jones, some of the veterans, they've never seen him so hurt and so angry as after the loss to the Redskins on Sunday, 41-14.
Now, there are those who said quietly maybe it would have been more effective if Landry had blown up before that game.
Mike Saxon, as Seattle will put pressure on him. Edmonds back at the 40. Oh, they do go after him. And a beautiful kick by Saxon. Edmonds at the 29. And good coverage as well as he returns to the 38-yard line.
To go back to the beginning of that play, we'll have a chance to look at what Rusty Tillman devised on this play. Now watch as they take these two men and drive them inside to try and draw the blocks and let these two fellows circle to the outside. Byron Franklin is one of those, and the other one is 23.
Patrick Hunter.
Patrick Hunter. Now watch it as they turn him loose here. You see them streaking to the outside. Good job by the Cowboys. Although they didn't get everybody picked up, they gave their punter time to get it off.
And Saxon delivered his best of the half, 55 yards, 11 on the return. Kreig hits Franklin. Franklin out of bounds wisely to stop the clock with a first down at the Dallas 48. And the Seahawks offense has moved at will.
Some verbal fisticuffs taking place down there between Randy White and Edwin Bailey over on that side. Might not be a bad idea to look in on that one as White exercised about something, and I would guess probably holding is usually what irritates those defensive linemen.
Ernie Stotner, a Hall of Famer, defensive line coach of the Cowboys in the blue. Fine catch by Franklin, short yardage, out of bounds, right into Stotner, it appeared, at the 45-yard line.
Well,
he could still make a tackle.
He could still make a tackle. Unfortunately, that was Manny Hendricks rolling out underneath him on the outside. Kreig getting the play, not much yardage on the play. Second, about 7 yards to go.
Seattle with a 21-7 lead and one timeout. 52 seconds left in the half.
I'm surprised they haven't tried to test Michael Downs deep. Downs limping through practice all week with a bad ankle, but they haven't tried to get him deep yet.
Raymond Butler in motion, number 83. Good protection. Kreig to the 40-yard line. Michael Downs there to make sure he didn't go farther than the 4 yards. And that's the last time out for Seattle.
Kreig short of that first down, but Chuck Knox has to be just really tickled with the way things have gone here in the first half. They have not made the kind of mistakes that have been putting them under the gun, and they have been able to make big plays offensively. You see there the timeouts left for the Seahawks. That's Steve Moore, blonde-haired coach with his back to you, standing next to Chuck Knox. Gilbert on the left, the backup quarterback. Moore spent a lot of his time up in the booth as the coordinator of the offense, but Knox has him down on the field the last few games. They feel that they have a better chance to really go eye to eye with the receivers and the quarterback, explain things in a man-to-man fashion down there on the sideline. Said, I can't see as much down there, but I can communicate with my people better.
Chuck Knox, we were talking in his 33 years of coaching about the men that had influenced him, and he mentioned Blanton Collier at the University of Kentucky, the former Browns coach, and the way he taught his players. He mentioned Joe Schmidt, who was a coach of the Lions when he was an assistant, and Schmidt gave him the player's perspective in coaching.
And Weeb Eubank.
Doesn't his name always come
always
up?
Seems to pop up, doesn't it?
Weeb Eubank, what influence he had on so many coaches. 3rd down and 4. Scansey again away from Hendricks. A flag is down, and so is Scansey at the 20-yard line. The penalty will stop the clock with 35 seconds left.
Quite possible that Scansey may have used a little bit of extra to get open on that play. No.
45 defense. Penalty is declined.
You knew it had to be in that confrontation between Manny Hendricks and Scansey, and it was Hendricks grabbing on. A little collision. They'll take it against the defense there. You'll see it from the end zone on the left-hand side of your screen. Look for number 45 defensively. Whoop. Well, it had happened earlier before that, and we actually missed the holding call, which must have taken place right off the line of scrimmage. But fine play by Scansey, who's impressive today.
He was
really
target of Steve Pelleur's at the University of Washington. Pelleur, the Dallas quarterback. And Scansey, who had only 8 catches prior to today, has 3 big ones in this first half. 35 seconds showing.
Audible for Kreig as he moves his troops around.
He's in field goal range, but he wants more. Throwing out of bounds. Hendricks, and a flag is down. It was intended for Franklin, but it was not a catchable ball.
Well, you won't have an interference call. You may have a holding call against the defense.
Illegal contact. Number 42 defense. 5 yards.
Beyond that 5-yard zone, you're not allowed to make the contact. Is that Everson Walls, 24, down there on Butler? Ray Butler, 83. And the feeling by the official that he chucked him to keep him in front of him. And of course, that will again bring up a 1st down situation. Now well within field goal range for Johnson, and Kreig looking for 7.
The Seahawks trying to make it a perfect offensive first half. 4 possessions, 4 touchdowns.
Some Seahawks fans are wondering if this is the same team they've been watching for the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Well, this was the team good enough to beat the New York Giants earlier in the year. Almost intercepted by Vince Albritton, and had he been 1 step closer to that deflection, he might have had 6 the other way.
But I think, in fact, if Dave Kreig hadn't taken matters in his own hands, watch Kreig at the end of this play as that ball is batted in the air. Albritton has a chance at it, but keep this thing going, because you're going to see Kreig become a defensive player here. Watch him dive in there to try and keep that man away from that football.
Yeah, they're going to measure competitiveness. Well, little number 17 out of Milton College, Dave Kreig, is high on the list.
Never an apology for that. Confidence may be a problem. Courage, competitiveness, he's right there at the top.
Beautiful deflection by Everson Walls. Last minute, he was able to get his hand in front of Raymond Butler.
Butler and Walls locking elbows down the sideline, almost like a couple going out to dance. But Walls getting the hand up and getting control of it.
Walls, who you saw leading interceptor in the league 3 out of 5 years, he and Downs came into the league as free agents in '81, and in 4.5 years they've got 62 interceptions between them. Looking for Largent, he's covered. So Kreig, they're going to call that intentionally grounding. Kreig
Trying to say, hey, I was just reacting, but The rule says very specifically, if you throw that football to avoid the sack, we've got to call you, and that's exactly what it was.
Intentional grounding. Number 17 offense. 10 yards and loss of down. Fourth down.
The blitz coming on Kreig. He gets away from the blitz, but still can't find a man open downfield. Good coverage. Now watch him here. Does not throw the ball until he knows he's going down. And of course that means he's just avoiding the sack by 40, Billy Bates, who'd come in on the safety blitz. This will stretch it out, make it a little bit more difficult for Norm Johnson.
Norm Johnson, this has been his tough range, 40 to 49 yards, 1 for 8 this year, even though he's made 3 over 50 yards.
Maybe you'd like him to move it out a little further, Dick.
Take another 5-yard penalty. It'll be about 45 yards.
Well, they must have marked off too much here. Let's see. They got to take it back. Ten-yard penalty. I think what they're doing is checking the line of scrimmage here. And now they're giving the mark.
To the 25-yard line. That'll make it a bit shorter, 42 or 43 yards.
You see those officials taking those steps. They are looking at the lines, though. They're not just stepping it off.
Gail Gilbert to hold. Johnson adds 3 more to complete an outstanding first half by a team that has struggled desperately offensively the last 5 weeks. Remember, this is a Seattle team offensively that scored just 1 touchdown each of the last 5 games, and they have a 24-7 lead at the half today.
Of course, all during this week, this short week, in the papers in Seattle, they've been reminding the Seahawks of another Thanksgiving Day turkey played here in Dallas, the most one-sided loss that the Seahawks have ever had.
I don't even remember that game, and to say I was here, I somehow repressed it.
It was one of the longest days of all the time for Landry to give one of those emotional locker room speeches. It's not something he does, but certainly if he does it, his troops will listen. I guarantee you that.
Johnson will probably skid one. No, he's going to send it high.
Confidence in that kicking game.
Clack at the 5. Hit hard at the 20-yard line, and 4 seconds left in the half. Seahawks, 4 possessions, 4 scores, settling for the field goal, 42 yards by Norm Johnson on the last possession.
And certainly the kicking game coming into play here as they have gotten good field position, especially on those last 2 drives.
And a combination of Johnson with the kickoff, pinning them deep, and then Bobby Joe Edmonds' excellent returns on the punts. A 1-2 punch for Seattle. Hershel Walker fumbles, recovered by Seattle's Kerry Justin at the end of the half. And Dallas gladly heads for the locker room as Justin had given Seattle possession. NFL 86 halftime activities will be with us as we watch Tom Landry make a long walk, and Chuck Knox, who came to Dallas wondering lots of things about his team, has to be pleased.
There may be some scorching words from Tom Landry in that locker room before this second half begins.
More than a touchdown favorite, trailing 24-7. We'll be right back after these messages from your local station.
So the Dallas Cowboys, who have dropped 3 of their last 4, trailing to the Seahawks, who only a week ago snapped their 4-game losing streak and have played very poorly on the road up until this Thanksgiving Day, 24-7 at the half. To update the Vinny Testaverde story, for those of you who might not have heard earlier, there he is. That's a live shot. He's at the Orange Bowl. He will not suit up for tonight's game against East Carolina. He could, were it an emergency, he could have played tonight. But they were a 41-point favorite with him, and they got to be favored by at least 4 touchdowns without him tonight against East Carolina. So senior Jeff Torretta will start in his place, and Testaverde will be ready for the Fiesta Bowl on January 2nd in primetime here on NBC to decide the national title against Penn State. Now let's go out to Chicago, where Jim McMahon is standing by. Jim with his family. There's daughter Ashley, and the younger of the two children is son Sean, who's approaching his second birthday. Wife Nancy is there. What's Thanksgiving Day like at the McMahon household, Jim?
Well, right now it's pretty quiet. We're getting ready to go to some friend's house for dinner right after this interview, and we've been just kind of relaxing today.
You know, I've heard you say before that the wild man image may be one thing, but at home you think of yourself as the absolute all-American family man, even with the shades on indoors.
Well, you got this light staring me in the face. That's why these shades are on.
I see.
But, I've usually sit over here in my chair and just sit there all day with my remote control, and whatever I need, Ashley's big enough now to go in the fridge and get it, so I'm pretty lazy at home.
It's important to have a chain of command in the household. The kids understand what their chores are. What about the shoulder now? You're heading out to Los Angeles, and what's the prognosis?
Well, I'm going out to Los Angeles on the 15th of December. The surgery will be on the 16th, and Dr. Joe feels that you know, he can fix it with the scope, and you know, it shouldn't be too long of recovery if that's the only thing they'll have to do with it.
Would this surgery have been necessary even had it not been for the hit by Charles Martin of the Packers this past Sunday?
Well, it's hard to tell, Bob, until they go in there and actually look around with the scope. I know the one tear that they diagnosed earlier in the season is definitely still there, and I also have one at the top of the shoulder.
He apologized a couple of days after the incident. Do you accept that apology, or just what are your feelings about him right now?
Well, I really don't have, you know, any feelings at all right now. I mean, my season's over with, and it's, you know, it's a bad break, and it's something that, you know, I know he apologized for, but it's something, you know, I'm just glad he didn't break my neck. I mean, that certainly could have happened. At the time, I didn't think it was that bad until I saw it later on that evening.
Watching the tape, it looked as if you didn't resist at all. Were you just so startled when he grabbed you that you had no reaction, or what was going through your mind at that instant?
Well, it just happened so fast. You know, I felt somebody back there, but I had no idea that, you know, that's what his intentions were. You know, he grabbed me around the arm, and I really couldn't protect myself at that point, and he just threw me down so fast that, you know, I really couldn't react.
Commissioner Rozelle has suspended him for 2 games pending his appeal this week. Do you think that penalty is severe enough?
Well, it's really not my job to hand down fines or penalties, but you know, I thought it was kind of light, seeing the fact that, you know, the way it happened and everything, but you know, that's not my job.
Some of your teammates feel there's a thing going on here between the Bears and Packers that's gotten completely out of hand, and that the Packers as a group are trying to hurt Bear players. Do you think that's true?
Well, I really don't know. I know the rivalry is definitely an intense one, and sometimes things happen that are outside the rules, and it's just, I think it's a lot more evident when the Bears-Packers play.
You were quoted earlier this week as saying that the severity now of your shoulder injury, you hope that convinces your teammates that you truly were hurt all along. Some had voiced some doubts about that. What do you think the feeling is now among the Bear players about Jim McMahon?
Well, you know, there wasn't that many players really that I don't think doubted that I was hurt. You know, there was a question in a few people's minds, but I think overall the people did know I was injured, and they know I'm just not out there hanging around. I've played with broken bones before, so it's something that you know, I have been able to play with a lot of pain, and this is it's my throwing arm, and if I can't throw effectively, you know, I'm not going to be able to be out there.
Can they make it back to the Super Bowl without you?
I think so. I'm hoping they do. I have a lot of confidence in our team. Our defense is playing real well right now, and I think offensively, I think with the fact now they know I'm not going to be coming back, I think the guys will be able to pick up the slack. I know Mike Tomczak's a good quarterback, and I think he can do it.
Jim, thanks very much. Happy Thanksgiving to you and the whole family.
Same to you, Bob.
Let's go now down to the Orange Bowl, where Jimmy Johnson, the coach of the Miami Hurricanes, #1 ranked team in the nation, is standing by before tonight's game against East Carolina. Jimmy, thanks very much for joining us. Did you give any thought at all to using Vinny Testaverde tonight?
Bob, not really. We talked about it. The doctor said that he could play, but he would be extremely painful, and there's just no way that they thought that he could be effective, and so we decided yesterday that we wouldn't play him in the ball game tonight.
Familiarize us a little bit then with Jeff Toretta. We haven't seen much of him.
Well, Jeff is a quality quarterback. He really hasn't had a lot of playing time, but we recruited him out of junior college a couple of years ago. He's a very intelligent quarterback. He understands our offense, and in fact, next month he'll be graduating with a degree in international finance. We feel like he's going to be able to do a good job. He throws the ball well. He's got a different throwing motion than Vinny, but we feel like he'll fit into our offense and do a fine job tonight.
looking ahead to the Penn State game in the Fiesta Bowl, have you begun those preparations already?
Not really. We're concerned with East Carolina. Anything can happen, as you know. You've heard it many times and seen it many times. And especially with Vinny out of the ball game tonight, we've got to make sure we take care of our business tonight before we get into the Penn State ball game. But I know this, they've got 19 out of 22 starters are seniors, and they've got a lot of fifth-year seniors. Quality football team. Of course, Paterno does a great job with this football team.
As it works out, that game will be for the national title for all intents and purposes, but that's a coincidence. Do you favor a playoff on a regular basis, some kind of system?
Well, I think people have taken me for one that doesn't like a playoff. I would be all for a playoff if we didn't take anything away from the bowl system. I think the tradition of the bowls and the enjoyment people have had over the years, I just hate to see that taken away. The other thing is, with the bowl system the way it is nowadays, you've got about 15 programs, the alumni, the coaches, the players, walking away from the season with a positive thought in mind and positive feelings about their programs. And with the playoff, you'll have one happy team and all the rest of them be disappointed.
Jimmy, thanks very much for taking the time out before tonight's game. Happy Thanksgiving.
All right, happy.
Jimmy Johnson, the coach of the Miami Hurricanes. We'll continue here at halftime in just a moment on NFL 86, so please stay with us. Something of a tradition, and when you think of Thanksgiving Day heroics and Dallas, you got to think of Roger Staubach. Ahmad?
That's right. Thanksgiving is not only a day for family and eating turkey, but for anybody who ever played football from Little League all the way through the pros, everybody has a great memory of a Thanksgiving Day game. That includes me and the great Roger Staubach.
The first one I started in, we beat the Rams on a key Thanksgiving Day. Roman Gabriel was a quarterback, and he was hitting touchdown passes, and I hit a pass to Bob Hayes, a long touchdown. I'll never forget that. Then Allworth got one over the middle, and we went back and forth and won 28-21, and that was a big one. One year we won. I got knocked out. We would have lost if I hadn't got knocked out because I was playing terrible, and Longley came in and won the game 24-23, hit Drew Pearson for a touchdown to beat Washington, and one year we beat St. Louis when they were on our 10-yard line. They had 4 plays to get in the end zone. The score was 19-14, and we stopped Jim Hart for a last-second charge on Thanksgiving Day. Of course, the big thing about it was to win that Thanksgiving, because you can enjoy 10 days. When you win a game, you don't have enough time to enjoy it. We lost to Houston one year, and my last year, and boy, I was miserable. I wasn't a lot of fun on Thanksgiving. I think I even cut myself carving a turkey. I had a bad day. And so it wasn't, but when you won, and we won a lot of those Thanksgiving Day, it was fun to go home and everybody's in a festive mood and you have all the friends there and you really enjoy your holiday. And we usually had a big Thanksgiving dinner at the house.
You know, a lot of people, when they finish playing football, they miss the game. And I don't miss it too much, but I would imagine on Thanksgiving, you got to feel a little extra adrenaline flowing because you were so successful on Thanksgiving.
Oh, really, yeah, I do enjoy it. I look back even as a kid, I remember the old Packers used to play on Thanksgiving, then the Lions, and you remember those days. And of course, when I graduated from college, I used to go back to Cincinnati. That'd be a holiday from the Navy, and we'd play. We had a turkey bowl back there, all the old high school guys. So I think on Thanksgiving Day, people are playing touch football in the morning and coming to watch the games in the afternoon in the turkey bowls. And it's, as a player, of course, I really enjoyed those days. Now I still get pumped up. I associate good things with Thanksgiving because we won a lot. So I still enjoy watching the Thanksgiving Day games.
Well, we are both too old to actually play, and I never got a chance to play against you on Thanksgiving Day. But now, this Thanksgiving, I'm going to give you a chance to get back in the winning column because we can play a little one-on-one here.
I don't warn you, I played in college. So I got my jump shot.
Yeah, sure. It's probably a set shot as long ago as you played. Foul! That was a foul! You're supposed to fade away on those rocks like that. Wait, top of the key. Treat me in your own backyard. Watch my hands. Foul! Please. I got those quick hands, man. This is the end of it right here. I can tell. Elgin Baylor. Left hand. Nice shot.
Get that one, left hand.
Nice shot.
Button down.
All right.
I knew my condition would pay off.
What is it? Can you slam dunk?
Huh?
Can I slam?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it is all over with. One of the few times Roger Staubach has lost on Thanksgiving.
ABC paid me to have him win this game from a couple of old basketball players. Happy Thanksgiving.
I work for NBC. Roger Staubach is really one of the nicest people I've ever met. Sometimes so-called heroes never live up to their billing, but Roger Staubach is one of these guys that surpasses his. If there's ever a role model that can be used on the field and off the field, it's Roger Staubach, Bobby.
Despite the scoreboard, I think he owns you.
Oh, no. Did you see that fadeaway? Did you see the fadeaway at the end of the thing?
Yeah, I saw it.
Thank you.
We got a fade away from you here for a second and go over to Frank DeFord. Quickly, your reaction as we backtrack a bit to Pete Rozelle's 2-game suspension of Charles Martin for the McMahon hit.
I think it's like a parking fine. I think the most ineffective commissioner in sports in the last several years has been John Ziegler of the National Hockey League for a large reason, because he's letting the goons get away with murder. And I'm terribly afraid that Mr. Rozelle is becoming Zieglerized.
Paul.
Well, I just look at it. I think that Martin should be suspended for 1 year. And I'm talking about continuing on into next year, for the rest of this year, into next year for what he did. And that will set an example for everyone.
Strong words, to be sure. And we'll go back to Dick Enberg and Merlin Olsen for the second half from Dallas right after these messages from your local stations. If we don't see you again, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
And welcome.